Yo, what's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Our Shared Experience. Today, we're going to be talking about travel. I think I was someone who grew up on Long Island, okay? I looked out at the clouds. I thought they were I would picture them as mountains. I would imagine myself traveling. But I grew up in a family that didn't travel. My dad was afraid of flying. My mom thinks and believes that her sense of direction is so bad she literally won't even drive a half an hour away from our house. Our family, my aunts, uncles, grandparents, everybody lived within about a half an hour radius of the house that I grew up in. So I grew up in a family that just didn't believe travel was important. They loved and still do love where they are, the bubble they live in, and it was extremely hard for me to pop that bubble and move, to leave that family space. And to be honest, I'm still given quite a bit of grief, even more so now that I have a 5-month-old son. My parents, who don't like to travel, are feeling very isolated and distanced from their grandchild, and this has become a very difficult thing living on the other side of the country. But first off, I need to live my own life, right? I need to love and believe in myself enough to be where I want to be in life, and where my passions and career has led me is an absolute dream come true. And I could never let that pressure and sort of pain that comes from the daily or weekly reminder or the saying, hey, when are you moving home? When are you moving home? And each one of those little things is a little bit of a stab, but at the same time, the love I have for myself and who I am and what I've done is grander than that, and I need to continue to push forward. Now, my travel began as like a progressional thing, like I believe most people should. I don't believe you should just go grab a plane ticket to China and see where the road leads you. I mean, you probably could and it would be fine. But for me personally, it was like, you know, I started dating my wife, Brian, over 20 years ago. Oh, it happened again. I'm so sorry, YouTube. My memory card ran out of space. So I'm going to continue the audio podcast over some beautiful images of places that you can visit in the world. Enjoy. Thanks for watching. Sorry. Let's get back into it. Over 20 years ago, and I was 14 at the time, and she would go into New York City for Broadway shows and things like that. And even at that time, even though New York City was about 2.5 hours away from my house, a simple train ride away, I imagined it just being like the craziest thing to go into the city. Like, oh my God, you can't do that. That's wild. That's wild. And when we started to do it, and I started to realize like, oh, this is fine. Like, oh, I get it, right? I'm street smart enough to be confident and aware of my surroundings. I'm not in danger. And getting to that place was so simple. And to be honest, I believe that distance is like, it's all about perception, right? Right now, I live outside of LA. I moved, and without traffic, it's about an hour drive. Now, the thing about that is when I tell people where I live in Orange County, they're like, oh my God, and you work in LA? How do you do that? But the real fact is, if I left during any rush hour type time while living in central LA to go to my friend's house, it would take me 45 minutes to an hour. So all of a sudden you're like, distance and time are related and have to be like put against each other, because you're saying like, how do you do that? You live so far away from LA where the work is. But I don't, because if I leave at the right time, it takes me the same exact amount of time to get there as I would have if I actually lived directly in LA. So with that concept in mind, getting to New York became like, oh, it's right there. It's so easy, right? Traveling to New York City, I can leave my house here to go to a job and it takes 2 hours. And that's just going to work. So when does it become okay mentally to travel a couple hours? Now you're traveling for 5 hours. Now you're looking at like, I can go to different states in that amount of time. I can fly to New York in that amount of time. So time is not the issue. It's perception of our distance away from things. And then the difficulty of it. I think so many people are like, man, travel's so expensive, right? That's the biggest excuse. Oh, travel's so expensive. No, it's not. You can get around the world for pretty cheap. If you just pay attention to flights, times that tickets should be booked, airlines, if you're comfortable being uncomfortable, man, you can get on Spirit Air and fly here for $50 and, next thing you know, you're leaving the country and experiencing the power and value of getting outside of your bubble. And if you're listening to this in the US, I urge you to get outside of the US. Go travel, go to a small city in Switzerland and see the different value of life people put on their health and the way they interact and the happiness that is going. In the same thing with other parts of the US, right? I live in California right now, closer to San Diego. But if I go Northern California up in the redwoods and I'm in a small area, the different energy that people have is invaluable to your life. Like getting to see and experience that, growing your perception of the reality that we actually live in, right? In the real life reality, not just looking at Instagram and seeing the most polished version of what a place might look like, but going out and going to Thailand, right? Seeing how comfortable people are in certain situations, how the street vendors might have flies landing on their meat and how normal that is and how it's not even frowned upon, and how we as a society have like built up this prestige to how things should be versus how they are and how it's okay. And that, I know the Thailand thing is probably sticking in some of your heads like, ew, flies on food. But in reality, it's just an example of like, there's so much more to the way that our society, right? Because it's not even a collectiveness. Where we grow up, who we're surrounded by, shapes who we are dramatically. So if we can stretch ourselves, if we can leave our bubble even for a week, take a trip, plan, like, here's the thing. If you guys have been like wanting to go somewhere, if this thought keeps popping up in your life, in your daily or weekly or monthly reoccurrence of a thought being like, oh yeah, I want to go there one day. Oh, I want to go do this thing one day. I'm not someone who would ever urge someone to like, yeah, save it for when you retire, work your butt off, and then you can live your dream life. Because honestly, who the hell knows what tomorrow is going to be like? Who knows if I'm going to die today? I don't know. No one knows. So why not give ourselves the gift of life and living? And God, I'm getting a little intense about this, but so if you guys aren't aware, I've traveled the world. I did a global tour. I literally went around the globe on our first tour. We did events in 15 different countries. I got to go to Australia and Thailand and all these different places in Europe, and it was beautiful for me because I would literally get to have conversations and connect with different types of people and different groups of people. And yes, we all share very similar things and thought processes. And the beauty of it is that we are all one. But because of the surroundings in which we grow up in, we're shaped to look and feel a different way sometimes. And I think the more that we can get out and touch and feel and be around the world that we are a part of, the better of a person we're going to be. And, I used to think like I used to be jealous of people who learned another language, who studied and were very educated and book smart in school and got good grades. And when I started to travel, I realized, oh my God, like if I had done this while I was younger, and yes, I'm still young, but if I had done it even younger, if my parents were people who urged us to go out and travel and see the world and experience different things, I feel like the growth inside me at an earlier age would have been tremendous. It's like learning another language. It's like being educated in a way that you can only experience, not learn in books, not see on TV. So for those of you who are parents out there or are still very young and developing, travel. Get your parents to let you travel, because I really do believe not only is there value in travel, but I feel like once you've started traveling, once you've experienced that other perception and other realities that are a part of our world, that then becomes who you are. So if I went and I visited other countries at the age of 12, every year after that, because of that experience, is being multiplied. My experience of the current reality that I'm in is shifted for the rest of my life. So don't wait to do it, because I believe the day in which you go and you travel and you experience different things like that will forever change you, and you get value from it for the rest of your life. So do it now. Stop waiting. Literally today, go online and look up plane tickets and how much it costs to go travel to the dream place you've wanted to go to. And then remember, Airbnb has changed the way in which we travel. There's tons of sites in which you can go sleep in hostels or get a tent and sleep in random places and camping zones, and it doesn't need to be expensive. Yes, we all wish we can go stay at a 5-star hotel and be pampered, but that's not where the value of travel comes from. In fact, that's probably the most limiting way you could travel, because the lessons that you learn come from when you're traveling and things don't go as planned. I believe there's so much value and stories that you get to keep when you just trust in the journey and you release expectation. So do yourself a favor, grant yourself the gift of traveling the world, and start it today. Thank you guys for listening and watching if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on any of the major podcast platforms, be sure to leave a review, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give me a like if you enjoyed this. Leave me a comment on where you want to go, even if you have no plans to leave your area right now. Just leave a comment so you can put it out there in the world and say, I'm going to go here one day. All right? Thank you guys for watching and listening. Peace out.